picks and bans. We see FunkyHao picking up 𝗀𝗺 and 𝗵𝗺 versus Hyperion's 𝗧𝗵𝗵 and 𝗵𝗂𝗽𝗆.
Yeah, not too bad getting an early buff on that 𝗵𝗂𝗽. He's gonna need it because look what he's going up against. That is 2 Wind Temtems FunkyHao decided to pick up. So a lot of pressure going onto the 𝗵𝗂𝗽, so much so that I don't even know if it wants to be on that opening board. So we'll see what he can bring in to try to eat all that wind damage, because that is a lot of pressure bringing it from FunkyHao's side.
Very true, and we do see Hyperion running a Gul'der, but no Naga. So let's see what he has in store for that, if he does end up picking it up. But FunkyHao finishing out his lineup with the Momo, Raikan, and a Wulfy. And we do see Hyperion pick up his own 𝗵𝗺 and 𝗀𝗺, and ending his team with the 𝗲𝗏.
That is right. So like we said, it is quarterfinals time. Let's jump into it, guys. A little bit different than the Swiss. If you're new here, it is going to be a best of 3 series, guys, to really prove who deserves to go forward into the semis and potentially get that finals position slot. First things first, game number 1 of these quarterfinals. Let's see what the opening turn has in store. As we mentioned before, a lot of wind pressure potentially going into the 𝗵𝗂𝗽, something like a FG, something like a 𝗵𝗵𝗆. So let's take a look. What does Hyperion have to maybe switch out? It doesn't seem like he has too much of a good options here.
I think the 𝗀𝗺 would be able to eat that special damage pretty well from 𝗵𝗺, and depending on whether there's Doppler or not, Feather Gatling might do a bit as well, unfortunately. We do see him bring in the 𝗲𝗏 right away, and also a double swap. 𝗵𝗂𝗽 goes out for the 𝗵𝗺 coming in, actually. And 𝗀𝗺 FG's the 𝗧𝗵𝗵 that became a 𝗲𝗏. It does have the snare, but you do have the +1 speed. It is an aerobic 𝗀𝗺. Oh, and the wind burst into the 𝗲𝗏.
Dude,
what a read.
Yeah, FunkyHao with that afro there must be the size of his brains. Big brain play there, knowing that 𝗧𝗵𝗵 most likely not staying in. So Hyperion trying to do, you know, the little bit of a roundabout play, you know, bringing in the 𝗲𝗏 on the 𝗧𝗵𝗵 spot, thinking that all the wind pressure was going into 𝗵𝗂𝗽. No, FunkyHao doing a little switcheroo on Hyperion. Look at the 𝗲𝗏 HP. Turn 1 𝗲𝗏 all the way down to 40%. Very, very good read for FunkyHao. Starting off the turn 1, going in his favor so far. But now with the 𝗲𝗏 here, this 𝗵𝗺 not feeling all that safe.
So the 𝗵𝗺 does swap out, and in comes the Wulfy, trying to tank up a crystal hit if he sees it coming in there. 𝗀𝗺 with the HKS directly into the 𝗲𝗏. Is it going to be enough to kill that +1? And it does, from 40% to 0. And 𝗀𝗺 goes to +2 speed. But oh, the tornado back into it, -2 special attack, special defense, sorry. Brings it all the way down to 16%. Some explosive moves turn 2 here.
That is right. So a big threat for the side of FunkyHao already dealt with. So 1 Temtem down in his only turn 2. Quite the aggressive plays already. So hey, 𝗵𝗺 did swap out just in case the 𝗲𝗏 wanted to target it down into the Wulfy. Now he has an option. What does he want to bring in? 𝗵𝗂𝗽 feels okay into the Wulfy, but he might have to deal with this 𝗀𝗺. Fortunately though, HKS is not online, so maybe the 𝗵𝗂𝗽 feels okay as you're able to kill the 𝗀𝗺 this turn without worrying it too much. But no, going for the 𝗧𝗵𝗵 buff onto the 𝗵𝗺. Interesting.
That is, 𝗵𝗂𝗽 did feel safe, especially with the protector buff and only a Feather Gatling online, assuming that this 𝗀𝗺 does not run Tornado.
Yeah, and it's at minus, I think it's just a speedy 𝗀𝗺, so we'll take a look. Maybe just didn't want to take that wind damage, but FunkyHao saving the 𝗀𝗺 for down the road, bringing in the 𝗵𝗺. And hey, just going for a simple plague onto the 𝗵𝗺, doing just about 25%. What does the 𝗵𝗺 want to do? Might be targeting down. Oh, okay. So targeting down that 𝗹𝗵𝗶𝗴, it looks like, but no splitting damage. Okay, interesting. So just splitting damage and getting a good chunk of damage done onto FunkyHao's Tem. Not too bad for that turn.
Yeah, that seems like enough of a chunk. It did 40% from a simple wind burst, so it does look like Tornado here might be taking 𝗬𝗶𝗴 all the way down if it does decide to stay in.
Yeah, I will agree with you. It might be somewhat close, but yeah, it did do 40% from a simple wind burst, so the Tornado could definitely kill, and there's not really an appropriate swap. I mean, Tornado just chunks, especially considering a hand fan, especially considering a lot of special attack on the 𝗏𝗠𝗀. So this Tornado, no matter what FunkyHao decides to do, will be connecting quite well onto any single Temtem. Voldrin perhaps the best Temtem to eat it, but at -2 special defense at 16% HP, it will be brought down. Maybe worth sacrificing, but I don't know. I smell one more HKS potentially down the road, so I think Funky might be saving it for that moment. So we'll see if he does go for a Tornado. Maybe the Plague outspeeds though, just to do a little bit more damage.
Oh, the Plague does outspeed. Let's see if the 𝗏𝗠𝗀 did click on Tornado. That's going to be an overexert and potentially massive damage. But we do see the Revitalize first into the 𝗏𝗏𝗀. And a Wind Burst from FunkyHao into the 𝗬𝗀. Oh, and Hyperion's 𝗏𝗏𝗀 rested there. That's interesting.
Yeah, very much so. It looks like he knew the Plague will perhaps outspeed him. FunkyHao does have the speed arrow, so perhaps worried about that. And you know what? I almost wanted to see the overexertion just to kill the 𝗬𝗶𝗴, but hey, Hyperion got here for a reason, so just trying to go for the strategic rest. And now Tornado is of course still online, and hey, we'll see if it's able to outspeed it this turn, because we don't know exactly the speeds, as we haven't seen 2-3 prior plays go at the same time. So yeah, we're in the exact same predicament as the previous turn.
That is very true, and I think Hyperion's being a little bit more careful with this 𝗏𝗏𝗀 because it is a key member of his team to deal with that Momo on FunkyHao's side.
Yeah, very true. Momo is still kicking in the back line, so if you get rid of the 𝗏𝗏𝗀, Momo's feeling very, very safe, especially if Hyperion is working with the 𝗹𝗵𝗶𝗴 as well. So we'll take a look at that when the time comes. But 𝗏𝗏𝗀 is trapped in, so that is not a neutrality 𝗏𝗏𝗀. It is confirmed to be an air specialist 𝗏𝗏𝗀. So yeah, no wonder that Wind Burst did so much damage. And hey, since 𝗏𝗏𝗀s can't move, it has to go down swinging. But FunkyHao retreating his own 𝗏𝗏𝗀, and this is a very brave play, bringing in the Momo in front of the two mental Temtems of Hyperion's.
Oh, and a sacrifice coming out from this 𝗬𝗀 onto the 𝗏𝗏𝗀 on the side of Hyperion. That is
Huge.
a big move there.
Yeah.
Another Plague into the 𝗏𝗏𝗀, and let's see what it follows up with. Just another simple Wind Burst into this Devil Fox, bringing it down to 21%.
Yeah, so not taking any risks here, not going for the Tornado. That is 2 turns back to back, just keeping it rather on the down low with the damage there. Just go to Wind Burst. But 𝗬𝗶𝗴 has gotten to the situation where one more Wind Burst does bring it all the way down. And Voldrin joining the party for Hyperion's side. This Momo though, I'm very curious what that Momo switch was about. Of course, I think he just wanted to get Undermine online. So let's see if it works out.
Quickly here. Plague again into the 𝗏𝗏𝗀, just trying to deal with its stamina. And Undermine coming out from this Momo into the Voldrin does 65%. Wow.
Huge. And there we go. That was what I was worried about. This should be big damage. Look at that. A little bit under 70%. The 𝗏𝗏𝗀 does overexert. This Noxious Bomb will clean up the Momo. And I think the 𝗬𝗶𝗴 overexerted, right, Pat? I'm trying to remember.
Yes, the 𝗬𝗶𝗴 definitely overexerted. It took 10% HP. And I believe the 𝗏𝗏𝗀 overexerted as well. So 𝗏𝗏𝗀 is trapped, cannot leave. And 𝗬𝗶𝗴 can leave if it wants, but cannot do any attacks this turn.
That is right. So FunkyHao thinks this is a great opportunity to bring in Daddy Riken, and I will agree with him. It looks like prime time to try to get a kill. You only have one swap out, so if FunkyHao guesses right, that will be a prideful buff activated. Let's see if he went for the Volrin, which is now the 𝗵𝗃, or did he go for the 𝗵𝗃𝗃 and he guessed it right? Man,
I think he took
so
the safe
good.
bet there. He took the safe bet. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 was trapped. It's only got 20%,
true.
and even with the +3 defense, 𝗵𝗃𝗃's is very squishy. So even a strong neutral hit does end up taking it down there.
Yeah, and forgive my ignorance, I completely forgot to see the cage trapped in Tem. But with that prideful buff on the Ryken, we all know how things tend to spiral out of control. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 replacing the Wolfie just to have that pressure onto the 𝗵𝗃. And boys, it is getting dangerously out of control. That is a double prideful buff on this Daddy Ryken.
Consecutive back-to-back pridefuls there, and it does look like this is going to be too much for 𝗵𝗃𝗃 to make up on its own.
Yeah.
You see the Fierce Claw coming out and a Tornado to follow up. Let's see if the 𝗵𝗃𝗃 can survive. With the Protector buff, it does at 37%, but again, it is got to pull off a 1v4 here.
That is right. And hey, FunkyHao, our #1 seed for a reason. A very commanding win with against our #8 seed Hyperion. Still very well played for Hyperion, but FunkyHao from that initial first turn coming out swinging against. It looks like game #2 is already in, so let's go ahead and join these guys. And we get to start fresh at the top of this pick and bans. As we said, FunkyHao is 1 game up, which makes him 1 game away from solidifying that semi-final spot. Hyperion standing in his way though. Let's see if he has something to say about it.
Alright, and Hyperion is blue side this time. Does ban out the 𝗵𝗃𝗃 first, so does change his ban here. And Funky responds with a Kinu ban.
Yeah, and FunkyHao did let Kinu in the previous game, so already switching up the game plans for both of these tamers. We didn't get to see the Fire Courage too much last game, or I don't think it was picked up. Let's see if it's picked up this time. It seems to be pretty good, obviously really good into the Vlash, decently good into the Ryken, decently good into the Volrin. But if it gets picked up, I feel like that Volrin 𝗂𝗏 or Volrin Wolfie feels okay-ish.
That's for sure. I think he's just trying to prevent a Ryken or Vlash pick first here, potentially. Maybe also trying to discourage a Kinu as well. We do see the aerobic Volrin picked up and the Wolfie as well from Funky's side.
And there we go. I was
pick.
thinking the Wolfie was pretty strong into things like that 𝗂𝗏, into the Vlash, decently good into the 𝗵𝗃𝗃. But hey, now that the Wolfie gets picked up, the 𝗂𝗏, no, not the 𝗂𝗏. Hey, he's eyeing the Vlash, but I don't know. Maybe, I guess just to get the neutral synergy. Okay, I respect this. The issue is, I don't think you can Madness buff, right? A Plague plus a FG might be enough to get you into that 30% range. Don't you think, Pat?
Yeah, it definitely could be enough to kill. Maybe he has another plan, or he just wanted to secure his only neutral synergy for the 𝗧𝗃 later on in the match, and he's going to swap out Vlash turn 1, but that means he's going to be losing some tempo here, which was key to Funky's win last game. So let's see what they decide to do turn 1. We do see Funky banning out the 𝗂𝗏, and then Hyperion responding with a Vlash ban.
That is right. So respecting the Vlash player, one of the best Vlash players since the start of the game. So good respect there. And it will be the 𝗂𝗏. Even though FunkyHao has a Wolfie, even though he has a 𝗂𝗏, still respecting the power from the 𝗂𝗏. I guess decently strong into his Volrin, into his Ryken, into the Momo. So I could see that. But I felt like FunkyHao had some answers. But taking a look at the other Tems, maybe 𝗂𝗏 did feel like he had a bad matchup just in case the Wolfie wasn't on the board.
That's very true. I think also that 𝗂𝗏's not very good into the Gul'der, the Volrin, the 𝗵𝗃𝗃, so it's not a really great value for Funky here. So without, if he's not planning on picking up 𝗂𝗏𝗃, then it makes more sense for the Turok ban.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely agree with that. So it was just, he's not looking at the 𝗂𝗏, most likely picking up the Kinu as we see him picked up. So let's get to it. Game number 2 of these quarterfinals. Can Hyperion beat the big brain FunkyHao, or is our number 1 seed gonna still be running through everyone so far? Let's find out. It looks like Hyperion does have a quite aggressive start. Something like a Crystal Spike 𝗧𝗏𝗺 on the Volerin feels okay. I know usually you want a Madness buff, but it's gonna get the Volerin dangerously close to all the way down.
And you know, if the Vola goes first with the Feather Gatling, dropping its own special defense, that Synergy Master 𝗧𝗏 plus spikes might be enough to take it all the way down turn 1.
Exactly what I was thinking as well.
It would have to go faster than the spikes though, which is unlikely, I think.
Yeah, especially with base speed. Of course, Crystal Spikes is 3 priorities, so it most likely will outspeed for the very first turn. But we'll see. I'm not too sure if the Volerin wants to stay in. However, Volerin is a good answer, probably the best answer on FunkyHao's team for the 𝗂𝗄𝗃. 2 Noxious Bomb are usually enough for a max attack Volerin. 2 Nox Bombs, as we said, usually enough to take down a 𝗂𝗄𝗃 all the way down. So does he want to start attacking it now? Because 𝗂𝗄𝗃 very strong into the entirety of Funky's team. Volerin can't take too much physical. Riken with those water cannons, same thing. Physical damage on Momo. Those 𝗧𝗏𝗺s will add up. Kinu almost gets 1 shot from one of those, and Wolfie can't take about 2 of those. So 𝗧𝗏𝗺 fish doing a lot of potential work against Funky's team. So I can see FunkyHao gunning them down from the get-go, but we'll see. It might cost them early on.
I just noticed also, if you look at Hyperion's backline, that Mashuk and Gul'dur, FunkyHao's got no answer effective into it aside from Volerin. So he's got to think about protecting it as well for the backline here. But you are right that 𝗂𝗄𝗃 does demand a lot of attention from Funky based on the rest of his lineup, aside from the Volerin. So he's got a lot of options here for what he needs to do. But if he leaves his 𝗂𝗄𝗃 unchecked, it could just run through his team. Also, if he lets the Volerin die too early, that could be bad for him. And we do see Crystal Spikes right away into the Vola doing almost 30%, followed up by a Plague into the 𝗏𝗡 for 35%.
Yeah, not too bad. It looks like FunkyHao was trying to play towards the Feather Gat. Oh, okay, splitting damage. This is interesting. So FunkyHao maybe thinking a bit too much about the play, thinking the 𝗂𝗄𝗃 was going to retreat into one of those toxic Temtems in the back line, maybe to eat up a Noxious Bomb. But no, Hyperion was just playing straightforward. FunkyHao overthinking it just a tad bit. He could have gone for a Noxious Bomb, but that's sometimes how it rolls when you play at these high levels. You don't know whether you're playing at too high, level, or you should just keep it straightforward. In this situation, of course, hindsight being 2020, better off with the straightforward. But the 5-head plays sometimes obviously work, like we saw in game number 1.
The other thing there, plus, is that both the 𝗧𝗏𝗺 and the Crystal Spikes went for 4 Volerin. So if he had Noxious Bombed here, he wouldn't have gotten the speed. So he'd just be dead on the board if he decided to stay again.
Oh, very true. Well, hey, this turn he does have +1 speed, but doesn't want to let it go for those same reasons you mentioned earlier. Those are 2 toxic Temtems in the back line with not much answers, but Hyperion just keeping things straightforward. Gonna Crystal Spike into the Riken. Let's see if he made a read. Is he going for a water cannon? Oh, I like the split damage there. That was very intelligent. And as we said, Wolfie can't take too many of those. One more of those, of course, it will go all the way down. But I think the Plague, I didn't catch it, Pat. Pat, did you catch it? How much did the Plague...
Vlash snared the handcuffs off of Wolfie, so 𝗂𝗄𝗃 is free to leave here. And I'm sorry, you were going to ask...
I just want to see if you caught how much the Plague did on 𝗂𝗄𝗃, because I think the Plague was going before the 3 prio 𝗧𝗏. So if it was enough to do that 36, but no, I think you're right. With 𝗂𝗄𝗃 being out of stamina, it looks like an appropriate swap. a potential double swap for Hyperion as he retreats the 𝗏𝗏 in front of the Riken.
And we do see Goulder and Mashuk coming in here to replace this board for Hyperion. Another Plague lands onto Mashuk. Not going to be doing too much there, just under 13%. And a 𝗧𝗏𝗺𝗈𝗈 goes into the 𝗏𝗏 spot, which is now a Goulder. He's going to tank that up for just 25% damage.
That is right. So two of these tanky boys, 𝗬𝗟 synergy is online, and that is essentially 50% damage over the next 3 to 4 turns. So that is something FunkyHao has to be careful with. He only has a Vulnerant to mitigate those toxic ticks. Everything else has to eat those in full. So that's most likely what Hyperion wants to do. Perhaps on that 𝗏𝗏. I couldn't blame him going for the Riken as well, but here goes. 𝗏𝗏 retreats for... Oh, the Momo to get that Undermine online. And the 𝗧𝗏𝗺. No, okay, double swap.
Oh, and he's protecting his Momo here. Probably expecting maybe an uppercut. Oh no, Erushiel goes into the right-hand slot, which did become a Keenu. Wow, that was a big read there. And a Toxic Ink covering both spots here and making sure he's got poison spread out.
Yeah, I will say Hyperion looks in a much better situation than the previous game. It looks like he has everything under control. Of course, Undermine is online. Something like a Beta Burst could do a little bit of damage onto the Mashuk, but not all that much damage. One more Toxic Ink from this Goulder will get the Keenu all the way down, especially considering those toxic ticks. The question is, where does FunkyHao want to Undermine? I guess the Mashuk feels a bit tougher to deal with, but the Goulder's a big tank. Oh man, this is a tough choice. I think the Mashuk might be a bit more correct. What are you thinking, Pat? Undermine into that slot?
I'm not quite sure. I mean, he does have the Beta Burst there to potentially hit the Mashuk. If he does Beta Burst and Undermine, it could be enough to take it all the way down.
Yeah.
But Undermine into Goulder instead, taking it, wow, to 27%
huge
HP.
Yeah, so worried about how does he have answers for this Goulder, and that makes sense. He kind of has Keenu for the Mashuk. He still has the Vulnerant in the back line for the Mashuk, but the Hypnosis putting that Goulder to rest, so no Toxic Ink onto the Keenu. And I missed what Mashuk did. It might have been...
It P-jabbed the Momo there.
Okay, I see. So it did bring that Keenu buff down to base stats. Momo back down to base defense. Not too bad. And now it doesn't have Undermine online. It's always interesting what Momo can do in between those Undermines turns. So the options are usually you have the Willpower Drain, you have a Bark, or you have a Double Edge. Something like a Bark on the Mashuk doesn't feel all that bad since it's seemingly tanky with that double screen and with the Parrier trait. I could definitely see something of the like. But you might be eating a 𝗬𝗟, right?
Yeah, no matter what he does here, I think potentially he could be thinking about a Bark plus a Beta Burst, trying to do some massive damage onto this Mashuk if it does stay, or decent neutral damage on anything else that does swap in. But if Mashuk stays, it can do an Erushiel, which would confirm the Momo to die basically here over the next couple of turns.
That is right. So trying to preserve that Momo. In comes the Riken. Maybe getting a buff or so. Maybe a Stone Wall or something from this Keenu. We will find out. But the 𝗏𝗏𝗺 replacing the Mashuk. And it's the double swap. Hyperion definitely being a bit more active this game. But oof, it will be the 𝗏𝗏. FunkyHao's Riken a bit stronger, a bit more pressure. Riken tends to just one-shot any 𝗏𝗏 at any HP. So this is a rough swap in for the side of Hyperion's. I thought he felt somewhat comfortable with the Mashuk and Goulder. Honestly, I thought a 𝗬𝗟 onto that Riken spot, or the Momo spot rather, felt okay, because you know that would be 50% of the Riken HP anyways.
That's very true. I think he was trying to take a turn to bring in 𝗏𝗏 and maybe try to get it rolling, or potentially Madness. But again, Funky knows how 𝗏𝗏 players think, because he is among the best of them. So he does bring in that Riken to sort of prevent Hyperion from trying to do trying to buff up his 𝗲𝗯.
Yeah, so I mean, everything's online. Of course, this 𝗲𝗯 cannot stay in, so might be becoming a 𝗵𝗂𝗃, might be becoming that Golder in the back line. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 has a heavy hitting tornado though, perhaps gunning down this Riken slot just for the damage. I wouldn't be opposed to also just getting the Qiinu out of here, so no more Qiinu buffs left to be had in the remaining of this game too.
Yeah, let's see what happens. 𝗲𝗯 leaves, in comes 𝗵𝗂𝗃. Qiinu leaves, in comes Momo back again to get the Undermine and to get the 𝗬𝗏𝗄 synergy. And wow, 𝗏𝗏𝗏 taken down all the way to 12% with the 𝗬𝗏 there.
So Funky, another really sharp read, knowing that the 𝗲𝗯 was most likely leaving, just gunning down the 𝗏𝗏𝗏 that was most likely staying. As you said, brought in that neutral synergy for the 3 prio, so we will see here. Riken naturally slow. I don't think faster than the 𝗏𝗏𝗏. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 not the fastest actually. He looks fast, but he's actually not that fast honestly. So Tornado should outspeed. More importantly, Undermine is back online. But you know, 𝗏𝗏𝗏 has a 3 prio mental attack that could possibly take down Momo too.
From Hyperion's 𝗏𝗏𝗏, I think we've only seen Wind Burst and Beta Burst. He hasn't tornadoed, but I think we assume he has it. Does he run the Energy Manip? Because that would be a good option to throw into that Momo slot here to try to outspeed the Riken. But seeing that he might go down here, he might just opt to tornado in case of a swap as well.
Yeah,
cover that better.
The only thing that's pretty worrying for Hyperion, if you leave in this 𝗏𝗏𝗏, that's almost a confirmed kill on this Riken, and we all know you don't want to let Riken start snowballing. This Riken, 1 prideful buff, +1 speed, +1 attack, +1 special attack. That is a lot of buffs you don't want to let your opponent have. So Hyperion doing the smarter play, bringing in the 𝗂𝗀𝗃, which should be 1/4 damage as we see there. And hey, that's still big damage, or decent damage.
And Undermine going onto the 𝗵𝗂𝗃, bringing it all the way down to 20% from 80, does 60% of HP in 1 hit. And Tenderness from 𝗵𝗂𝗃 onto the Riken there.
Yeah, not too bad, and not too bad. So Riken, 33% reduction on that attack, but it still seemingly has the priority. The 𝗂𝗀𝗃, no 3 prio play unless the 𝗲𝗯𝗏 comes in, but a bit too risky. And 𝗵𝗂𝗃 at base speed, this Riken with 3 prio should be enough. It's running out of stamina, however, so might be electing to swap out unless he thinks he could kill this 𝗵𝗂𝗃 here. 20%, can he do it? 𝗵𝗂𝗃 is at, you know, base defenses. It does have a parry trait, and Riken at -1 attack, I think is too risky just to overexert. But hey,
and the cage coming out from 𝗵𝗂𝗃 there. He does read that the Riken was gonna swap. Momo barks the 𝗂𝗀𝗃, and let's see what 𝗂𝗀𝗃 does. Water cannon, of course, into the Riken was the reason he caged to keep him in, and it is gonna be taking him all the way down. He gets that Riken out of the field.
Yeah, brilliant cage on the side of Hyperion. Riken was on the verge of really getting a good prideful buff, but Hyperion saying not today, bringing it down. And yes, with that synergy master from itself and the toxic synergy from 𝗵𝗂𝗃, bringing it all the way down. However, it does enable FunkyHao to bring in the bird, and I believe it does have hyperkinetic strike online, and 𝗵𝗂𝗃 is trapped, so is this 𝗂𝗀𝗃. Anything he chooses will be going down, and I think Momo rather speedy as well. I think this might be a double kill for the side of FunkyHao.
A double kill, because Voliren's got +1. It can kill the 𝗂𝗀𝗃 before the 𝗬𝗏 comes out, or kill the 𝗵𝗂𝗏, which we do see here with the Feather Gatling. And then we know Momo's speedy as well, so the Undermine should be outspeeding anything from the 𝗂𝗀𝗃. Take it down all the way, which we do see come out here.
Yeah.
So Funky does get the double kill. Vola still got HKS up, and anything that's coming in is not going to be wanting to eat that.
That is right, and you know, what a beautiful play, knowing exactly the damage needed to take down the 𝗵𝗂𝗃, saying, why would I throw out a HKS? Let's just kill it with a Feather Gatling and save the HKS for this exact moment right here. It is at +2 speed. This HKS will chunk something like a bark. Oh, no, HKS will go first either way. But 64%, that is not that high. I could definitely see a +2 speed, max speed Voliran take that Vlash all the way down, and you only have the Golder in the back line. This is kind of close, because look at Funky's back line too. Everything is very, very weak. But I think a slight edge going on the side of Funky. We have to see how this turn goes, though.
Do we see an HKS into the Vlash, and would it bring it all the way down from 64%? No madness buff, no plus special defenses here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be super, super close. He could elect to bring in Golder, but here the answer will be, we will have our answer, and it does survive.
It's going to go on to the Momo here for the Scavenger proc, and the Barnshee should be able to kill the Voliran -2 special defense.
Wow. Everything, it was so close. The biggest question we all had, does the Vlash survive? And the answer is yes. I think this Vlash are looking really, really strong. Wolfie can't really deal with the Golder all that well. It is going to be a +1/+1 defense, special defense, Devil Fox. But C Dust, just for the priority on Keanu, you get another Scavenger proc, and a Tornado onto Devil Fox should be a GG. Hyperion should be able to bring this all the way back.
And we do see the Tornado coming out, finishing off that Wolfie. Even with the Protector buff, it's not enough to survive with just 38%.
Yeah.
And Hyperion ties up the set 1-1.
That is
going
right.
to game 3 here.
But they're already in. It's super speedy this time.
Okay, let's go into spectate mode here.
Oh, and FunkyHao realizing how impactful that 𝗧𝗵𝗶 was on that game too, immediately bans it. So that is some respect earned from the Fire Quish there.
Indeed, he does not want to pick up 𝗂𝗏𝗃 on his side, which would be a good answer to the Quish, but so he just ends up banning it instead. It does create a lot of problems for him with a team that he doesn't want to really pick 𝗂𝗏𝗃 in, and we do see the right hand ban coming out of Hyperion. Knowing that the Quish is not there, he doesn't have very good options to deal with right hand, especially since Funky typically has been banning Turok on his second ban.
Yeah, and that's just a good sign of a strong competitive player. You don't always go with the exact same pick of bans. It always depends on what your opponent bans first. So really well done banning it, as you said, not having too much good answers for that Riken. So hey, we haven't seen the Turok come out to play in this entire series. Is it coming out now? It's a pretty good answer to you to the Voliran. But without that Riken, I feel like the 𝗂𝗏𝗃 start might be coming in, or the Wolfie does also pressure out the Turok too. So we'll see what he wants to go for. That Voliran just always feels so safe. It's so crazy how it always feels good to start off with.
Yeah, as long as it lives through one turn, it's very hard to take down a Voliran on turn 1 without any strong electric Tems on your side. So as long as it makes it through turn 1, especially as an aerobic bird, it's got a lot of options turn 2 moving forward. So we do see a Keanu Vlash start coming out of Hyperion here. The classic, it's the FunkyHao classic against FunkyHao.
That is right. Well, hey, back in the day, the real FunkyHao classic was a Gialis Vlash lead. But yeah, this is as close as it currently gets in the meta right now. Keanu Vlash, keeping that Vlash very, very comfortable. Perhaps, I think we might get the first madness buff of the day. Maybe not the day, but definitely of the quarterfinals so far. And wait a minute, Pat. Vlash versus Vlash. Oh, this is going to be epic here.
Which Badger is best?
Yeah. We will be finding out shortly. But I think this goes a little bit stronger on the side of Hyperion with that initial Keanu buff, allowing the madness buff to feel rather comfortable. And it might be a gentleman's madness buff. If you ask me, I feel like we might get that good old gentleman's let's get the madness buff out the way, and then let's see who makes the better plays going forward. But this is a tough one here. It looks like a really good matchup so far. It looks like the 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗴𝗴 for FunkyHao, as we saw the previous game. Everything's still the same. Goldr and Voldrin, last Temtems to decide for Hyperion. Voldrin always feels good. Slowpoke Goldr is tanky, but Voldrin is there just for some good damage.
Alright, and we do see turn 1 coming out here. A lot of options. We can see a double madness. I'm not sure if I'm risking that, because a spike plus a feather Gatling plus a madness would probably be taking down Hyperion's
You think
own 𝗏𝗏𝗏 there, if that's what FunkyHao decides. But
yeah, maybe FunkyHao has done the math, because he could have elected to go with like something like 𝗂𝗀𝗶𝗆 for those toxic ticks, which end up doing 25% additional damage over time. But maybe he knows the math. So max special attack 𝗏𝗏𝗏 plus that FG plus the 30% may be enough. But I want to say with this +1/+1 from the Qinup proc, or the Qinup buff rather, I think it feels a bit comfortable. Of course, he will get very low, but this is going to be a tricky first turn. I think they both madness buff. Oh no!
We do see spikes and feather Gatling, and I think that's the right play, because looking at the back line, that combo does not want to be eaten by anything else that Hyperion's got back there. So let's see what Hyperion decided with his 𝗏𝗏𝗏. We do see a beta burst coming out, so I think this means he did click on madness, and it is coming out here.
And it looks like that Qinup buff did keep the 𝗏𝗏𝗏 very comfortable, hitting exactly 25%. Now this Voldrin might be running scared. However, HKS very well will be outspeeding this 𝗏𝗏𝗏. So with +3 special defense, it could maybe survive, but I don't think it survives enough if 𝗏𝗏𝗏 wants to double in onto it. So I could see a swap out and save this 𝗏𝗏𝗏 down the road. But this is a tough. You don't really have a good options, right? 𝗏𝗏𝗏 counters the 𝗏𝗏𝗏, Voldrin counters the 𝗏𝗏𝗏, and I haven't been paying too close attention. If that's a doppelganger Voldrin, that's gonna be doing some good chunk on Voldrin. So maybe
yeah,
you...
and I'm thinking here, either a feather Gatling if he knows he's faster, or an HKS just in case, plus a crystal dust should be enough, I think, to take down this 𝗏𝗏𝗏 here before it moves.
Yeah, tricky play. It comes down, does he want to risk it? Of course, a crystal spike onto this minus special defense Voldrin will indeed kill, but I think it might come at a cost. Voldrin is at +1 speed, essentially 3 prio on everything he does, including a feather Gatling. So it will be matching.
And Ali in the chat, I'm sorry, Ali in the chat did mention the feather Gatling went before madness turn 1, so that means with a +1 speed, it is going to go before spikes turn 2. So that is very true. Thank you.
Very true. Thank you for the insight. So, and on top of that, the speed arrow, making sure just in case. But that is right, feather Gatling did go before, so both neutral prios. So in terms of 3 prios, or no, the 1+ speed making those normal prios into 3 prio from the Voldrin will be comfortable enough. So does Hyperion realize that? And what can he really swap into? This is just a tough swap for Hyperion's here. I think is necessary though.
Yeah, but even if we know he has the swap. Well, what comes in?
Exactly. I know he has no good options. He just has to, save this +3/+1, +2 special attack 𝗏𝗏𝗏. I think that's gonna definitely be a win condition. Let FunkyHao's Temtems go a little bit lower in HP. Do everything you can to take FunkyHao's Tems lower and lower with the rest of your team, and then have this crazy madness buff Badger come in and save the day at the end. I believe that could be a potential win condition for Hyperion, but of course way easier said than done, especially against an incredible opponent such as FunkyHao. So we will see. No wonder this turn is taking quite some time. It's only turn 2, but this decision right here might be deciding the entire game, honestly.
And then with Funky at such a huge board advantage, does he take this turn to maybe bring in the 𝗀𝗚 and Madness buff his own 𝗏𝗏.
Exactly, yeah, the mind games are really real. Like, you know, does Hyperion flinch, retreat the 𝗏𝗏? All right, these guys have made their decision. Let's take a look. So 𝗏𝗏 does come in for 𝗀𝗚. 𝗏𝗏 does indeed retreat. It looks like it's going to be Mayweather the Mashuk 1-2 punch ready to go.
HKS coming out of Vola. How much is it going to do with +1?
Jeez.
Wow, all the way to 21%. And the Crystal Dust to follow up. Oh, just barely not enough to kill. 2 HP left on that Mashuk, but it's not going to be happy turn 3 here, because guess what? Vola's still on the board, and it's +2 speed.
That is right. So even if Mayweather wanted to go for a turbo choreography, making that 4 prio with the 𝗏𝗏 to his side, a +2 speed, Voldaren should still be able to outspeed with a simple FG. And yeah, FunkyHao just keeping it straightforward. If 𝗏𝗏 wanted to stay in, I think he would have got the kill. It would have been a little bit close. It is that +3 special defense, but I believe the HKS formula doesn't take into account at some point that special defense, so I think it would have indeed gone down in the cage, keeping everyone in this turn.
Okay, we do see Funky did try to swap that Voldaren, a Crystal Spike into the 𝗏𝗏, and a Tornado coming out into this Voldaren, -3 special defense. Is it enough?
Huge.
And it is enough to take all the way down.
That is big. This Voldaren had a lot of potential energy still left in him, so good kill for Hyperions and good cage. You know what? That single HP, or it looks like 2 or 3 HP remaining on Mashuk, making a difference. If the Mashuk would have dropped right there, if that was a Crystal Spike rather than a Crystal Dust the previous turn, Mashuk wouldn't have been able to cage, of course. And you know, cage is ultra priority, goes before the swap, so catching the Voldaren and really good kill for Hyperion. It looks like that is the first kill of the game going in favor of Hyperion, but a lot more games still left here to be done.
And 𝗏𝗏 with the Crystal Dust trying to save on stamina confirms the 𝗏𝗏 kill, but unfortunately no Scavenger because he is already at 100%. But he's not going to like that P-Jab coming out of Mayweather, but it does go down here to the Beta Burst from 𝗀𝗚.
Yeah, so FunkyHao getting that double kill there. 𝗏𝗏 did overexert, or was it perfect stamina?
Oof.
Yeah, I couldn't catch it too. I was looking at the damage done for those birds, but we'll take a look. It might have been perfect stamina. Actually, I think it was at perfect stamina because you were the one that told us it was at 100, so no Scavenger. So yeah, it was perfect stamina. So hey, no cage here. It could decide to retreat for the next turn. It did get a +1 from the 𝗀𝗚, so just a slight +1 special defense on this 𝗏𝗏. And hey, Hyperion starting off very strong with this Madness buff, but not looking all that good. I think this is a good time to bring in 𝗏𝗏 𝗀𝗚. I think this feels pretty good spot. 𝗏𝗏 most likely can't get a kill with a +4 special defense, and if he wants to go for it, oh, okay, maybe going for a 𝗀𝗚 swap-in. I think that feels comfortable.
You know, I think I would have brought in 𝗏𝗏 and 𝗀𝗚 because he's the opposing 𝗏𝗏. It has no stamina, and he can revitalize the 𝗀𝗚. I mean, but revitalize his own 𝗏𝗏. I don't know why he went with the Voldaren here. Maybe to threaten out the other 𝗀𝗚, but we'll see.
Yeah, I would agree. That's what my gut feeling was, of course, just to get that extra buff, and of course revitalize would have been beautiful, making that Madness buff 𝗏𝗏 really impactful throughout this game set. But the 𝗏𝗏, just in case it was onto this 𝗏𝗏, and this is big. I love when people do this play, speeding up the 𝗏𝗏, but 𝗀𝗚 going all the way down. But to the point I wanted to say, speeding up that 𝗏𝗏, making that 𝗏𝗏 does Vortex, matching the same speed as a Crystal Spike. So that +1 speed, really nice onto that 𝗏𝗏 there.
And you know what? Hyperion with the bigger brain play than me, because he's now building up those special defense stacks. And looking at Funky's team, he's only got special damage coming out for the rest of this game.
Yeah, and nothing in the backline wants to eat, but you know, nothing's too threatened from a single crystal spike. But maybe that's what the idea was, to bring in Voldaren. Bring in Voldaren now to start stacking up some stacks on the Voldaren. It looks to be anaerobic, so the hyperkinetic strikes aren't going to be too impactful this game. But maybe just stacking up the special defense to be able to better deal with the Momo, the Vlash, and the Wolfie. All three of those are special attackers.
And will we see the FunkyHao's Vlash go down from a Spike plus Feather Gatling combo here?
Yeah, this one's tricky. Vlash, I believe, will have to overexert just a tiny bit if he does want to go for a crystal spike. But hey, maybe Hyperion saves the Vlash. Yeah, this is what I was thinking. Bringing in the Kinu just in case, buffing up this anaerobic Voldaren, because anaerobic Voldaren could be the win con. You know, Vlash is really good, but hey, plus a lot of special defense is going to be huge. And yes, eating up this Dust Vortex very, very well.
So the Kinu does survive the Dust plus DV, and Voldaren building up those special defense stacks with another Noxious Bomb onto the Wolfie there, bringing it down to 26%.
And that wasn't too bad of a play. Now the Kinu feels a bit uncomfortable. Of course, a single Sea Dust will bring it down, but that doesn't give Vlash too much value. It's already at 95%, so Scavenger doesn't really apply here. And hey, the Vlash stamina is getting very, very low, and we saw one Voldaren hit onto the Wolfie. That's all it takes. One Noxious Bomb, one Feather Gatling onto this Wolfie will bring it down, and that leaves the Vlash rather comfortable. So hey, Wolfie does retreat to not die this turn. In comes the Momo. Let's see how this turn plays out. Oh,
and the sacrifice into Voldaren. He's going all in on this Vola, but you know what? With the Vlash in its buffed up state in the back, and a Madness buff coming out from Funky's Vlash. Wow, I did not see that one coming.
That is right, Vlash, you know, never too late. Never too late to deploy that Madness buff, and that's exactly what FunkyHao just did. Is it going to make a difference? Because I believe if he didn't overexert, he will have to overexert very hugely to do anything here. He only has a very minute stamina. So this is looking okay for the side of Hyperion. One Crystal Spike plus another Feather Gatling onto the Momo spot. That is a guaranteed kill onto anything. If Wolfie comes in, he's going to die to the FG, proccing Scavenger. If Momo stays in, he's going to die from that double up. So I think Hyperion is feeling comfortable here.
Funky going for the willpower onto that Voldaren, trying to make it overexert. The Crystal Spikes does bring down the Momo all the way from 63% to 0. So we do get the Scavenger onto both Vlashes, and now a Hyperkinetic Strike onto Funky's Vlash does overexert it, bring its own HP all the way down to 68%.
And very interesting decision to go with the HKS. The idea was perhaps to guarantee to outspeed Momo, but that might have been a costly overexertion. FunkyHao, one of the best Vlash players, resting that turn just to try to do some good damage, and he's going for the Hail Mary. Oh no, no DV just yet. Wait, a Ren? Oh! Wait a second.
Oh, and a Rend enough to kill the Wolfie. Scavenger for both Vlash, but now we have a +5 special defense Voldaren and a +3 special defense Vlash versus a +3 special defense Vlash. I think we know which way this is going, folks.
Yeah, and the stamina running out because the Vlash does not have the sweatband, so I believe Hyperion with the underdog story. Oh, the
Funky's
concession.
Seeing the writing on the wall.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's go in. And we see a lone 𝗧𝗵𝗺𝗀𝗃 at -5 speed versus a 𝗂𝗀𝗵𝗵 at half health and a 𝗵𝗵𝗺 at 2%. What happened this match?
Yeah, it looks like, man, a -5 speed. Wait. How does that happen? Usually you get those with like Tesla Prison. What technique is that? Flood? Yeah, you know what? I think it's a flood with the Earth synergy from 𝗵𝗵𝗺. So -2 speed. He must have got off like a couple floods there.
Yeah, the Gary 𝗵𝗺 combo.
So not too bad. It's a 1v1. If anyone in chat was paying attention to the results, let us know if it's 1 versus 1. If this is the game match right now. I mean, we had a whole 3 games, so I would imagine this is game 3 here.
Yeah, this has got to be, and I think they didn't report any of the initial scores. I think it was just 0-0. So I would assume it's 1-1 here, and we're in game 3 right now.
Yeah, I agree. So, hey, 𝗧𝗵𝗺𝗃 from Dodge going the game plan of the P-jab. Well, in this sense, it's the stairs. So, -2 defense. But Diego, just to recover some stamina, going for the strangle. But that goes both ways. Both tamers get to rest here, so it doesn't get too much done.
And I think it's just time for some Toxic Ink, maybe? From Nox?
Yeah, that or perhaps a 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗃, but I think he's going for the home run, folks. -3 defense. Does he think one narco hit takes it all the way down? This is risky. I think he might have had to start attacking here.
Ooh. And the tank just does about 24%, so one more is not going to kill unless there's some overexertion damage, which there is right there. So another tank will finish it out. But with the -5 speed, 𝗂𝗵𝗵𝗃 goes first. I don't think it's enough damage for 14%. So Nox is going to take it here, I believe.
That is right. And man, that overexertion was a bit costly there because, as you said, one tink wasn't enough. Is this enough though? No, surviving at 5%. Let's take a look. One Toxic Ink or a narco hit is enough. And Tosh, I believe, will be taking down 𝗵𝗺𝗺𝗃. So GG. Let us know though, it could have been a game 2. I'm not too sure because we weren't spectating the whole time. Oh, there we go, looking good.